Welcome to the English Anywhere podcast. I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Greg, and I can confidently say for both of us, we are so excited to be here with you, chatting and sharing our lives. And as our friends will tell you, we love to chat, especially about our favorite things, dogs, traveling, and experiences. This is the perfect hobby for us both, talking and sharing our stories together, and of course, with our lovely listeners.
And what's good about reminiscing is it can bring back those wonderful moments, those special memories. If I close my eyes, slowly breathe in, breathe out, and let my shoulders drop, I feel relaxed. And then I take myself back just for a moment to those wonderful places I visited. I get my holiday fix, and voila! No need to book another holiday again. No, just joking. It is quite the opposite, actually. These chats always inspire me to pick a place on the planet and focus on getting there. Booking a trip means so much to me. I know I'm going. So, up until I step on that plane, all my stressful days are pushed away with the thought of a great holiday coming up.
Totally agree. I call it my happy place, the place where dreams come true. Actually, it is just my next booked holiday, but it keeps me focused and driven. I simply imagine myself already there, and that thought is enough to keep me motivated. It makes me think, do you remember that time you told me when you got completely lost in a taxi while you were traveling? I feel like there's a good story there.
Oh, wow. Yes. Yes, I remember it very, very clearly. It's one of those memories that doesn't fade? It's still so vivid in my mind, even all these years later.
Those are the best kind of memories. So, set the scene for me. Where were you?
Okay, so I was in Spain, in a small, beautiful city in the south. I was there for a few weeks trying to immerse myself in the language and the culture. And this particular evening, it was late. The sun had set hours ago, and the city had that magical, warm glow that old European cities get at night. The streetlights were on, casting long shadows on the cobblestone streets. I'd spent the day exploring the city on foot.
The best way to explain.
Exactly. But by this point, I was tired, my feet were aching, and I was ready to just get back to my little rented apartment. I was standing on the corner of a fairly busy square, watching the cars go by, and I finally saw a taxi with its green light on.
Welcome sight, I'm sure. Did you flag him down by waving your arms like we do here? I can picture it, you jumping up and down.
I did. He was definitely not driving by without seeing me. Yes, he pulled over and I jumped in. The driver was an older man, maybe in his 60s. He had kind eyes, but he looked just as tired as I felt. He turned around slightly and asked me in broken English, "Where do you need?"
And this is where the language challenge begins.
This is it. I took a deep breath. All day, I had been practicing the name of the street in my head. I wanted to say it perfectly. So I used my best, most careful Spanish and told him the name of the place, really focusing on the accent.
I know that feeling, the mental preparation.
Exactly. I finished speaking feeling quite pleased with myself. And then, nothing. He didn't move, he didn't start the car, coughed a little and tilted his head.
Oh, no.
He just looked at me in the rearview mirror. He took his hands off the steering wheel and held up his palms. He looked completely confused. Eyebrows up, head tilted, that universal look that says, "I heard words, but it did not help me understand where you need."
That's when you have to wake up and start thinking, how am I going to translate this? Quite deflating when you're tired.
It really is. All that confidence just vanished. I tried again, slower this time, carefully pronouncing each sound. He shook his head gently and repeated the name back to me, but it sounded completely different. We were both trying, but missing each other.
Though it's late, you're tired, and you can't explain where you're going.
Yes, and that's when the panic started creeping in. My phone battery was almost dead. I didn't have a map. I felt that tight knot of anxiety in my stomach, thinking, am I going to have to get out and start all over again?
The problem suddenly feels much bigger.
Exactly. The silence in the car felt heavy. Outside, the city was alive, people laughing, music drifting from a cafe, and inside, we were just sitting there, stuck.
That's so awkward.
It was. Then the driver sighed softly, looked at me again, and in very slow, simple Spanish asked, "Can you show me if I drive?" He made a small gesture with his hand, pointing forward.
That's actually a really clever solution.
It was, and the relief was instant. As soon as he said it, my brain suddenly switched on. I realized I actually knew the way. Not the street names, not the address, but the route.
Your visual memory kicked in.
Completely. I could see the turns, the landmarks. I'd walked it earlier without even realizing I was memorizing it. The panic disappeared and was replaced by this surprising feeling of capability.
That's amazing. My brain would have shown me a blank screen.
Honestly, same, which is why it surprised me. I smiled and said, see, yes. I told him to drive straight and I'd tell him when to turn.
So now you're the navigator.
In a way, yes. I leaned forward, watching carefully. I remembered that the first turn was just after a big church.
What did it look like at night?
Beautiful, pale stone glowing under spotlights, a tall bell tower, huge wooden doors, impossible to miss. And when I finally saw it, I think I actually sighed out loud.
You found your anchor.
Exactly. I pointed and said, "Aquí, a la izquierda," and it worked. He turned, smiled at me in the mirror, and gave me a thumbs up.
That must have felt incredible.
It did. Not because I spoke perfectly, but because we understood each other. From there, everything was easy. One more turn, and I was home.
It's amazing how a simple taxi ride can turn into such a meaningful experience.
It really can. It taught me that communication is more than words. It's patience, creativity, and trust.
That reminds me of another travel moment, one where I wasn't navigating literally using all my senses.
Oh my, please explain. I am loving this. You have my attention.
It was in Marrakesh, deep in the old Medina. The streets are like a maze, narrow, twisting, and constantly changing. The architecture was like nothing I had ever seen before. I would wander for hours, looking, listening to the constant hum of the city, distant music, people shouting and laughing. Oh, and the smells. Wow. They were truly like nothing I had ever smelled before. Hypnotic almost, filling me senses to the brim. Now, this is what traveling is all about. Completely foreign and intoxicating. A sensory overload in a good way.
I'm seriously jealous right now. I feel if I close my eyes, I can just imagine that scene. Amazing.
It was. I was just in awe of my surroundings, and then I thought, geez, I haven't eaten. I really need to get back. And exactly that moment, I said to myself, where the bloody hell am I? Funny, but not funny, as I realized I was completely lost. I decided to try and navigate myself back, and what I did was I listened to the noises. I heard a distant bell ringing, and I realized that I could hear that bell from my hotel. So I walked in that direction. 10 minutes later, I smelled that bread. The bread that the bakery near the hotel makes every morning.
That smell obviously stayed with you. You're like the modern day tracker, but with sounds and smells.
I was. Once I gathered my thoughts and took in my surroundings, I realized I just had to open up my senses and find my way back. No help needed, just a little bit of common sense. Slowing down and immersing myself in my surroundings helped me get home.
It's interesting, isn't it? How the taxi was the same. Just slowing down and using your brain works.
Yes, in both cases, you stop trying to use a quick fix, e.g. your phone, and just pay attention to what is going on around you, especially when you're traveling in a country where English is the second language. Being on it can help you get out of a tricky situation.
And once you do that, everything feels easier, even the language.
Honestly, getting lost, or rather getting immersed in the whole atmosphere of a country, can lead to the most interesting outcomes and often a story to tell.
So true. No one talks about the day everything went smoothly.
And speaking of trying things without knowing exactly how they'll turn out,
Are we talking food?
exactly. Trying new food, especially when you have no idea what it is, can be really scary. I know, Chelsea, you are a vegetarian, so even more scary for you.
I, again, go by smell. If it smells even slightly weird, I am not eating it. No way. I do love to try new foods as the world has such unusual ways of preparing veggies. So I will try most things, and like I said, as long as it smells good.
Some of the best food discoveries come from taking that small risk. I have iron guts, so it isn't too much of a worry for me.
I have a friend who remembers every meal they had when traveling. They refer to a country with a meal they had there, especially if it was good. Such a food lover.
Though next time we'll talk about that. The food we tried, the surprises, and the moments when we ordered something completely different from what we expected.
Definitely. And we could get our listeners to phone in with their stories. I'm sure we will be entertained on what people got up to overseas and how the food experience changed what they regularly eat.
Either way, they're worth exploring.
Definitely.
All these stories, the taxi, the unexpected meal, they're wonderful, but they're also quite passive experiences. We were sort of carried along by the events. Remember when we've tried to be more active, to get more involved?
Oh, I know what you're referring to. That actually was a great idea. Not to just visit, but join in with the local community and get our hands dirty. We just wanted to become part of the local fabric, even for a short time.
Well, you got to choose a destination, which I was ecstatic about. I would never have ventured there, but I'm so glad we did. Central America in a rustic but idyllic small mountain town, and we decided to do something different.
Such a lovely time. Seems so long ago now. We had been in town for a few days, just exploring and getting a good feel of the culture and foods, but it wasn't doing it for us, so we decided to volunteer at the local school.
Right, we'd done all the normal touristy things, but we hadn't really connected with anyone. So we just walked over to the local school we'd pass a few times.
That's right, and lucky for us, Simone, the main teacher, was outside fixing a fence. She was definitely a jack of all trades, or rather, a Jill of all trades. I'll never forget her face, a mixture of yes, please, and thank the Lord.
We literally didn't have to say much. Within minutes, we were given instructions in broken English that they needed help chop down a dead tree in the schoolyard. The children came to us in the yard and was laughing and practicing their English on us. How are you? How old are you? The questions kept coming. Simone sent them back inside, and we got to work on tidying up this tree. Simone said they didn't have the money to hire professionals, and no one in the village had the right equipment to get it down safely. So there we were, two tourists with absolutely no tree felling experience looking at this huge problem.
And what did we do? Undoubtedly, we said yes. And what came next was memorable. They led us to a shed and pulled out the equipment. It was a rusty handsaw, an axe, a few lengths of old rope, and a very wobbly ladder. The ladder was not stable and wobbled when you stood on it. But what I remember most was the sense of teamwork. It wasn't just us. A couple of the male teachers came out, and following their mimes and gestures, we tried our utmost to cut down that beast. Best way to cut the branch without it falling on the school.
And the kids, during their break, they all came out and sat in a line watching us. It felt like we were the afternoon's entertainment. They were cheering and laughing every kind of saw move.
It was so hot and my arms ached from using the axe, but it was actually satisfying. But every time I looked down and saw those kids and the teachers giving us encouraging smiles, it felt important. We weren't just tourists anymore. We were people helping other people.
The final moment when the branch finally gave way with a loud crack is etched in my memory. There was this collective gasp, then a huge cheer from all the kids. It was such a release of tension and a moment of pure shared joy.
Afterwards, we were all exhausted, covered in sawdust, but so incredibly happy. Simone brought us some sweet, lukewarm tea in little glasses, and we just sat there with the teachers, smiling. We barely spoke the same language, but we had accomplished something together.
Exactly. It's the difference between collecting places and collecting experiences. When I think back on that trip, my memory of that afternoon is so much more vivid than any photo I took. It's a feeling. It's the smell of sawdust, the sound of the children laughing, the ache in my muscles. That's the real stuff.
It really is. It turns a trip into a story, not just a series of sights. And that's what we're always looking for, isn't it? The stories. Thanks for listening. And wherever you are right now, stay curious.
And don't be afraid to explore.